This is Curves and Membranes 1.3.5, and yeah, it's a fairly big update. It started with a comment on the Node mode from David, a guy with at least two great qualities. He's a user of my plugins and he's a talented musician. He asked whether the Node mode could be saved to the preset slots, and ideally that it could morph between the states of Node or Bézier. My first thought was that it would be impossible to implement without raising the already high CPU load. But after a good night's sleep, I started to look into the oscillator core again, and actually the whole synth code, and I started to optimize. And once that worked, a few other things followed. So let's go through what has changed. The old Wave Bézier presets are now called Oscillator Presets. They still store the waveform shape, but on top of that they also store a few other parameters. The first new parameter is Bézier to Node control. At one end you have the original smooth Bézier waveform. At the other end you have the straight vector shape from Node mode. And anything in between is now possible too. More importantly, that value is stored independently in each oscillator preset slot. So one slot can be a smooth Bézier wave, another can be fully node based, and another can sit somewhere between the two. And because it's part of the preset system, Preset Slew interpolates between the settings. So as the waveform itself is changing, the underlying geometry is also moving between Bézier and Node. This of course works with more complex wave shapes too. And especially with fold mode, it can get quite different from what Curves and Membranes could do before. The oscillator overflow mode is also saved with the slots. So non-clip and fold can be part of the slot and follow the sequencer. And these changes are also interpolated by the slew. That means that one slot can be a clean waveform, another can use fold, and the synth can gradually move between them instead of just switching modes. You can combine this with the Bézier to Node control, so that a single sweep between two slots both controls the waveform geometry and the overflow mode. The next new parameter is Detune. There is now a simple auxiliary oscillator that runs at the same geometry as the main oscillator. The only control for it is how far it's detuned from the main oscillator. At 0 it is actually off, and you can only hear the main oscillator. Turn it up and you get the usual beating between two slightly different oscillator frequencies. Detune is also stored in the oscillator preset slots. So with slower sequencing and a lot of slew, you can have a second oscillator gradually drift away and then come back in tune. At faster rates, it becomes more of a texture or just a weird effect. The last major addition to the oscillator presets is the LFO settings. The pitch, LFO and noise modulation settings can now be different in every slot. So a slot can have no pitch modulation. Another adds a vibrato. Another can add noise. And those settings can also move with the sequencer. This means that a transition between any two slots can now change quite a lot at once. So let's hear some examples. few workflow improvements. The first worth mentioning is probably copy and paste. It lets you copy the Oscillator Preset slot settings to another slot. That way you can set up all slots with more or less the same settings and just move it slightly for each slot. You can also double click or shift click on a node or handle to move it to the vertical center line. This can be useful when you want to set up a silent slot within your wave sequence, which can be quite useful if you want to create some rhythmic textures, which I'm personally very fond of. If you're using the CC4 mode, it can also be useful to start the travel with a quiet slot to make the movement more expressive. And regarding the CC4 mode, I've made some handling improvements, mainly regarding the slewed version that makes it move much smoother now as the CCs come in. If you haven't used the CC4 mode before, you turn it on by turning off the clock and the keyboard reset. Then the foot controller navigates the slots by turning it up or down. The slew control sets how far for each slot it interpolates. At max, it's a smooth movement across each of the slots. If you turn it down, you get it to stick more to each slot, value-wise. And I guess I don't need to say it, but the CC4 mode can be very useful if you want to fast edit different slots, as you can navigate them with your foot while you're working the geometry with your hands. A fair amount of work went into optimizing both the oscillator core and the membrane filter to make this work. I reduced the internal update rates as much as I could without affecting the synth sound or how it feels to work with. After adding all these new functions, the CPU load is on par or lower than it was before, so I see that as a great win. So, this is Curves and Membranes 1.3.5. It's available for all current users on your account page, and it includes 10 new presets if you want to see what it can do before you start to just explore it yourself. I personally find that this update really opens up the synth to some beefier sounds and weirder textures without losing its character. I really hope you will enjoy it as much as I do. If you would like me to make more focused videos on certain functionalities or maybe some plugin pairings, please let me know in the comments. And if you're interested in Curves and Membranes or the rest of the Unusable Engineering range, please check out unusable.net for more information. Thanks for watching.